Welcome to our lecture on metaphysics, one of the core branches of philosophy. 1. Introduction to metaphysics. The term metaphysics comes from the Greek words meta, beyond, and physica, physical things, essentially meaning beyond the physical. It was first used by Aristotle's editors to describe the topics in his works that came after his book on physics. However, metaphysics is not just about what comes after the physical. It deals with what lies beyond the physical realm, the fundamental nature of reality itself. Metaphysics asks questions like, what is reality? What does it mean to exist? What is the nature of objects and their properties? What is the nature of space and time? Do abstract concepts like numbers exist? Unlike physics, which studies specific phenomena in the material world, metaphysics explores the underlying structure of reality that physics presupposes but doesn't explain. 2. The central questions of metaphysics. Ontology, the study of being. One of the central branches of metaphysics is ontology, the study of being. Ontology asks questions about what kinds of things exist and what it means for something to exist at all. Some of the key concerns include what exists. Philosophers have debated whether only physical objects exist, or if other things, such as thoughts, numbers, or even possible worlds, also exist. What is the difference between existence and non-existence? For example, what does it mean to say something like, a unicorn does not exist, versus a table that does? What are the basic categories of being? This asks whether we should divide reality into things like objects, properties, events, and relations, or whether reality is something entirely unified. The nature of objects and properties. This aspect of metaphysics concerns the distinction between objects, like a chair or a person, and the properties those objects possess, like being red or tall. Philosophers have posed numerous questions here. Substance versus attribute. What is the relationship between an object and its properties? Does a substance exist independently of its properties, or are the properties all there is to an object? The problem of universals. When we say two objects are red, what does this mean? Do the two objects share a common property, a universal redness? If so, where does this universal exist? Causality and free will. Causality, the relation between cause and effect, is another key topic in metaphysics. For centuries, philosophers have asked, what does it mean for something to cause something else? For example, does A cause B because of some necessary connection, or is it simply a habit of observation, as David Hume famously argued? Is the universe deterministic? If every event is caused by prior events, does that leave room for free will? How can we reconcile the apparent freedom of human choice with the causal structure of the universe? 3. Metaphysics of space and time. The nature of space philosophers have long debated the nature of space. Is space an actual entity that exists independently of the objects within it, as Newton argued? Or is space merely a relation between objects, as Leibniz suggested? Absolute versus relational views. Is space like a container in which things exist, absolute space? Or is space just a way of describing how objects relate to one another, relational space? The nature of time. Similarly, the nature of time raises deep metaphysical questions. Does time flow? We experience time as moving forward from the past to the future, but does time itself flow? Or is this just a feature of human consciousness? Are the past and future real? Some metaphysicians hold that only the present exists, a view called presentism, while others argue that the past, present, and future are equally real, eternalism. Can time be cyclical? Some philosophical traditions, such as those in Indian philosophy, have proposed that time is cyclical rather than linear. How does this affect our understanding of causality and existence? Fourth, metaphysical theories of reality, materialism versus idealism. A central debate in metaphysics is whether the nature of reality is fundamentally physical or mental. Materialism. This is the view that everything that exists is material or physical. All mental states, such as emotions or thoughts, can ultimately be explained by physical processes in the brain. Idealism. This is the opposite view, which argues that reality is fundamentally mental. Physical objects only exist as perceptions in our minds. The philosopher George Berkeley famously summed this up as, "To be is to be perceived." Dualism versus monism. Related to the above debate is the question of whether reality consists of one kind of substance or two. Dualism. This view, most famously defended by Descartes, holds that there are two kinds of substance, mind and matter. The mind is non-physical and cannot be reduced to the material world. Monism. This view holds that there is only one kind of substance. Materialism is a form of monism. Everything is physical. But there are also idealist forms of monism. Everything is mental. Metaphysical realism versus anti-realism. Another key issue is whether the world exists independently of our perceptions and theories. Realism, the view that the world exists independently of our thoughts and perceptions. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, the realist would say it still makes a sound. Anti-realism. This view holds that reality is in some sense dependent on our perceptions or linguistic practices. For example, some anti-realists argue that scientific theories do not describe an objective reality, but are merely useful tools for organizing experience. 5. Metaphysics and science. Metaphysics might seem abstract, but it has direct implications for science. For example, quantum mechanics. The strange behavior of particles at the quantum level has led some to question the nature of causality and the reality of objects. Does quantum physics suggest that reality is fundamentally indeterminate? Cosmology. The study of the universe raises metaphysical questions about the beginning of time, the nature of space, and whether there are multiple universes, the multiverse theory. Science often leaves these deeper metaphysical questions open, making metaphysics a complementary field that attempts to understand what science assumes. 6. Metaphysics in everyday life. Metaphysics is not just an abstract academic pursuit. It affects how we view the world in everyday life. Here are some examples. Personal identity. What makes you the same person today as you were yesterday? Is it your body, your memories, or something else? This metaphysical question impacts issues such as moral responsibility and legal accountability. Ethics and morality. Metaphysics explores whether moral values exist objectively or are just social constructs. This has significant implications for how we live our lives and make decisions. Free will. Our beliefs about free will shape our understanding of moral responsibility, legal systems, and personal accountability. Conclusion. Metaphysics is a rich and complex field that seeks to understand the ultimate nature of reality. It addresses fundamental questions about existence, causality, time, space, and the nature of objects and their properties. Although metaphysics might seem abstract, its questions are deeply connected to both science and everyday human experience. Understanding metaphysics allows us to think more deeply about the world around us and our place in it. Whether we are debating the existence of free will, the nature of time, or the structure of reality itself, metaphysical questions are at the heart of what it means to be human.